Welcome back, focused learners. Today, we're diving into a brand new explainer covering the latest source changelog for Claude Code, specifically version 2.1.227. Now, I want to set the stage right out of the gate here. I'm not going to overhype this release. You aren't going to see any, earth-shattering new capabilities or massive architectural overhauls today. Actually, this is a dedicated, highly targeted maintenance release. But as any seasoned developer knows, these maintenance releases, they're often the most crucial ones. They're the updates that literally save your sanity and prevent those dreaded Friday afternoon deployment disasters. We're jumping straight into the source material to unpack exactly what's been fixed, what's been improved, and why it actually matters for your daily programming environment.
Ever had a single bug just silently halt your entire GitHub workflow? Yeah, you absolutely know the feeling. You've written beautiful code, you push your commits up to the repo, and suddenly, bam, your CI/CD pipeline throws a massive red error for absolutely no logical reason. It is deeply, deeply painful, especially when you know your code is perfectly fine. It just stops your momentum dead in its tracks. Well, this explainer is going to serve as the immediate solution to those exact frustrations. We're looking at this specific version update as essentially a rescue operation for your broken pipeline's installed interfaces.
Okay, moving right into section 1, squashing 3 frustrating bugs. We're talking hard failures and weird quirks here. All right, let's dive straight into this. There are exactly 3 concrete, workflow-disrupting bugs that have been successfully isolated and squashed in version 2.1.277. And to be clear, these aren't minor typos in the documentation. No way. These are actual, functional blockers. Let's break them down one by one so you can see if you've been a victim of these sneaky errors and, more importantly, how they've finally been resolved. First up, let's look at this specific configuration flag, allowed_non-write_users. If you use GitHub Actions to automate your software workflows, you might actually recognize this one. It's a config flag utilized for the Claude Code action when running on GitHub-hosted runners. If you happen to have this specific flag configured in your YAML files lately, you might have been scratching your head, wondering why your automated testing and deployment suddenly hit an absolute brick wall. So here is exactly what was happening behind the scenes. If you were running that setup, every single bash command was failing. It was what we call a hard failure, just a complete and utter blockage for any CI/CD workflow relying on that configuration. Your scripts couldn't execute, which meant your builds couldn't complete. But the great news? The root cause has finally been patched, bash command execution is officially restored. If you update to this version, that hard blockage is removed entirely. That means your pipelines can finally breathe again, and those vital bash commands are going to execute completely normally. Let's move on to our next bug and see how this builds out the overall stability of the platform. Now, this one goes out to the Max Plan subscribers. Have you been incorrectly prompted to enable usage credits for Fable recently? Yeah, it was incredibly frustrating and confusing, right? I mean, you pay for the top tier, you really shouldn't be dealing with usage limits. Well, here's the mechanical reason that was actually happening. When your Claude Code session started with an expired logging token, the system was trying to evaluate background feature flags. But because the token was expired, it just couldn't read your subscription tier. It basically forgot you were a Max user and asked you to pay up. Thankfully, that is now fixed. Your subscription tier is correctly read from the system, even if your current session token has technically expired. So no more spurious prompts interrupting your flow. Moving right along to the third fix. This one involves the text-based user interface, or TUI. Claude Code has this really powerful feature where you can rewind a conversation, rolling back context even all the way to before the very first message. But previously, if you executed that rewind and then immediately opened the /TUI interface, the system would just instantly pull the entire erased conversation right back into view. It effectively undid your rewind entirely. It was a bizarre, super annoying quirk that honestly just broke the chronological logic of the tool. But no longer. The TY command has been updated, and now it completely respects your rewound state. So, the underlying workflow is fixed. The hard blockages in GitHub Actions are gone, the false billing prompts are silenced, and the rewind logic is finally sound. But how does it actually feel to use the tool in your terminal? Because it's one thing to patch a breaking bug, right? But it's an entirely different thing to refine the daily driving experience of a coding assistant. Let's pivot our narrative smoothly here and look at the day-to-day user experience. Which brings us to section 2, 2 quality of life tweaks, specifically focusing on UI polish and performance. You know, when you're staring at a terminal for 8 hours a day, the little visual details absolutely matter.
We have exactly 2 targeted tweaks here, designed exclusively to smooth out your daily developer experience. Now, they aren't flashy new tools, but they drastically reduce the cognitive friction between you and your code. Let's take a look.
And this brilliantly illustrates that first tweak. Let's compare the old versus the new /command menu. In the old version, which was frankly a bit messy, the blue highlight color was applied way too broadly across the menu. It made it genuinely hard to scan and see which row you actually had selected. Plus, the characters that matched your typing were just recolored. And emojis or accented characters, oh man, they were completely mangled by the renderer. But now, check out the new setup. Blue marks only the currently selected row. It's clean, it's precise. The matched characters you type are now bolded, which is so much easier for your eye to track instantly. And finally, those emojis and accents actually render perfectly. It's just a vital visual tightening that makes the whole menu drastically more readable when you're moving fast.
Now, the second improvement is entirely invisible, but you are absolutely going to feel it. Fewer event loop stalls. If you know anything about asynchronous programming, you know the event loop is basically the beating heart of the application. Previously, there were 2 specific operations causing the event loop to stall out: file not found suggestions and @mentioned size checks. Because these background processes just took too long, they briefly froze the interface. Well, by optimizing both of these operations, that stalling has been mitigated. You might not notice a night and day difference, but your editor is going to feel slightly more responsive exactly in those micro moments where you need it to just keep up with your typing speed.
All right, wrapping things up with Section 3, who needs this update? The bottom line. So, the crucial point here is how this affects you practically. Let's segment this out. If you're a GitHub Actions user utilizing the allowed _non-write_users flag, you need to update immediately. Literally, do not wait. This is a critical fix, and your bash commands will finally work again. If you're a Max Plan subscriber, you'll want to pull this version right away so you can finally say goodbye to those annoying, spurious usage prompts and just get back to coding. And for everyone else, you still absolutely want this update. You get to enjoy the crisp, polished /command menu and that snappier, stall-free event loop. There's a tangible benefit for every single type of user here. Of course, an update like this is just one piece of a much larger ecosystem. If you want to dive deeper into the mechanics of these features, read the full manual, or if you just want to understand every single capability this tool has to offer in plain, easy-to-understand English, direct your browser to cloudmaster.net. For sure, it is the definitive source for maximizing your leverage with these tools. I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder before you jump back into your terminal. We just saw how a single configuration flag silently broke entire CI/CD pipelines, and how routine background size checks were subtly freezing an entire interface. It really makes you wonder, are unseen workflow bottlenecks silently draining your productivity right now? Take a moment today to audit your tools, get your systems updated to 2.1.227, and keep your development environment as pristine as your code. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay focused and keep learning.